Hello again, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show with Debra Prinzing. This is episode 542. It's so great to be here today to share our 8th consecutive floral forecast for the Slow Flowers community. Last Friday at the Slow Flowers member virtual meetup for January, those who attended got an early sneak peek at this report. We recorded the session, and I'm sharing the edited version with you today. This report has become an important gauge for our members as well as for the greater floral marketplace and business media as we evaluate prevailing cultural shifts, notable changes, and breakout ideas influencing flower farming, floral design, and consumer attitudes about flowers. The Slow Flowers Floral Insights and Industry Forecast debuted in December of 2014 when I first compiled my top predictions for 2015 and shared them with the media and the floral profession. The forecast continued through last year, through 2021, as I gathered intelligence over the course of each year, conducting hundreds of interviews for the magazine, for the podcast, and soliciting feedback through our annual Slow Flowers member survey. For 2022, I'm so pleased to be joined in this endeavor by Bloom Imprint's creative director, Robin Avni. Robin has contributed her unique point of view and expertise in developing this year's forecast with Slow Flowers. She has taught me a lot about forecasting. Much of what I know has come from past collaborations with Robin. Robin has successfully managed innovative, award-winning teams and high-profile projects, as well as receiving numerous awards, national design awards, and has worked with Fortune 500 companies, national advertising agencies, and award-winning media properties, applying timely lifestyle insights to their businesses. So I want to get right into the juicy part of our presentation. We'll get it started and introduce you to 2022's theme, Floral Reawakening. And I'll share our sponsor thank yous at the end of this segment. Let's get right to it. My good friend Robin Avni, and welcome her to the meetup. She's my partner in Bloom Imprint. And hi, Robin. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm really glad to be here.
We see each other on Zoom almost every day.
Yeah, Zoom, phone, message, you name it.
Driveway.
Driveways.
Well, for about the last 8 years, I've done a forecast for Slow Flowers community. Yes, but things have changed for me in the last 12 months. And that one is that Robin and I are running Bloom Imprint together, our boutique book publishing company, and you'll hear more about that later. I see a few of our authors are on here today, Robin. Cynthia Zamaria has joined us, and a few people who are in some of our books have joined us too. So I saw Kaifa Anderson Hall is here. Let's see, who else caught my eye? Anyway, I'll shout out as I see you. I can't scan very quickly, but I think Sandy Feigl is here. She's in Where We Bloom. And Teresa Rao, she's in Where We Bloom. So we've got a good flow of people from Slow Flowers being featured in Bloom Imprint. But this topic today is specifically going to be better than ever because Robin has an extensive career in trend research and consumer ethnography. And I'd love, Robin, do you just talk a little bit about that practice and how we integrated it into the Slow Flowers forecast this year?
That's great. Happy to do so, Deborah, and welcome everybody. So we just want to give you a little background. So this analysis is done over a year period. So we just didn't sit down like over January beginning and do this. And it's based on what's called STEEP analysis, which is STEEP. And what that means is S is for social. What's going on socially in the environment? What's happening? What do we see that's happening across the country, across the world socially? For instance, is there a particular amount of unrest? For us this year, of course, the big social thing is COVID, right? So then T, technology. And technology meaning not only what are the advances and not the hard tech, but how are we communicating with one another and what technology is impacting our lives and our decisions. The next is environment, something we're all very familiar with, but the environment in terms of just everything from weather to attitude about things. The second E is economic, and that means how's the economy doing? What's happening? Are things good? Are things bad? Etc. And then the last one, P, means political. So what's the political landscape, which has been very interesting to watch over these last couple of years. It's always fascinating, but it does impact everything that happens in our lives. So what we use primary data resources, which are things like Debra's survey, Slow Flower survey that she did with you. We also look at demographic data, such as census material and other demographic research, and as well as other kinds of surveys and research that happens over the year. And then we look at secondary data, and that means like all your books, all your magazines, all those news and social things that are going on that you hear about in terms of, just your everyday life, what your neighbor's doing, what your cousin's doing, all of those things play into it. And what that ends up creating is what we call is our zeitgeist for the year. And we do this over the year, and I make folders and I throw things in them, and then I throw them all at Debra and we talk about them.
It's really been fascinating. And it's funny because we 10 or 11 or 12 years ago, Robin started a group in Seattle called Real Women, Real Life. This was pre-Instagram. And it was a group of about 10 women, journalists and lifestyle experts who we created this blog, and we each had a subject matter expertise. So I was the garden person. We had a parenting person. We had an home organizing person. We had a nutrition person and
health person. Yeah.
Yeah. And we blogged for over a year, and it was really awesome. But as Robin says, if Instagram had been around, this would have taken off. So I'm remembering those days, Robin, and all the things that we did together. And it's like so secondhand to work with you, so second nature to work with you and just know how you see the world, and then how you take a macro trend, as you're calling it, the Uber trend, and filtering it down to our community and our topic of flower farming and floral design and sustainability. It's really fascinating.
Well, thank you. And this is more, just for the audience, this is more than periwinkle is the color of the year. No offense, Nisha. And it's more than, COVID's really impacting all of us. Mm-hmm. So it's more than that.
It's more nuanced. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dig in, and we're happy to take your questions. Just put them in the chat, and Nisha or
Karen will jump in.
Karen will jump in with them.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Well, I want to just say you used the term zeitgeist. So I guess our zeitgeist is floral reawakening. That's our theme for the year. And I just have to thank Pepper Haro for this amazing field shot of cosmos, because I just at the last minute said to them, do you have a field shot that I can use that we're not using in your upcoming book? So they sent this over. And I think we'll talk a little bit about this, but Robin has addressed some of the ways that we've done the analysis, and we'll share this deck with people too. So let's dive in and look at our first insight. Is that okay, Robin? You ready for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I love this phrase, now or never. Robin just kept circling back to it and saying, everything she's reading and hearing, especially in our community, are people really using the last 2 years to look seriously at what they're doing with their lives and what do they want to do, and taking advantage of this forced pause that we thought we were done with. We might be back into it, who knows? But as each of us evaluates, the mission and purpose of our floral enterprises, it's important to, recognize that COVID has taught us that nothing's guaranteed. This photo is really fun. It was given to me by Jennifer Couvant of Six Duchess Farm in Hudson Valley. She's with her partner, Hans Lee. And this year they gave up their apartment in Manhattan and just moved to the farm permanently. And we're going to have her on a future podcast so you can hear more about it. But there was a quote that she wrote on her Instagram feed that really caught my attention, that kind of embodied all of this. She said, "We made the decision to let go of our apartment and pack up many decades of belongings and move them to the farm, all part of the process of letting go of our New York City home of many years. Life evolves and we know it's time. And that is a shift we hope to finalize in 2022. So, Robin, you want to talk a little bit about the larger culture?
Well, what's interesting is many of you might have heard these phrases called the Great Resignation or the Big Quit, where people are quitting their jobs. And this isn't just, there's a very basic level of, I just can't do this anymore every day, and I'm in danger of my health and my family. But then there's a larger level of this, which is I've taken a pause and I've decided that it's now or never. I have an opportunity to do something different with my life. COVID has given me that pause, which is a blessing in disguise. And the phrase, just so you know, the Great Resignation was made by Anthony Klotz, who's a professor at the business school at Texas A&M University. And now he has really, it's taken off, and they use all of this in relation to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that millions have quit their jobs as of July 2021 to try something different. And also along these lines, they've moved. The demographics show big moves all across the country. This is a great example. For those of you who are interested, there was an article in the New York Times just last week about New Yorkers who moved out of the city and how people are angry at them. Their friends are angry at them. So this is a perfect example of that article. And I would say that, Debra, according to your survey, 51% launched a new product or service in the past year in their floral business, and 36 phased out of other products that they're no longer doing.
Yeah. And, even 14% said that they relocated in the last 2 years. So, and 11% left their full-time non-floral job for flower farming or floral design. So even in our community, we're seeing that people are doing this introspection and looking in the mirror and saying, as Robin coins this phrase, now or never. And I think what this means for you and your business is to take that time to consider what you want to do for the future and what changes you can make that will make you feel more fulfilled and feel more like you're living your mission and your purpose. That's one reason why I asked Xenia if we could do a giveaway of a workshop with her vision board webinar, because that's super timely and that's taking place at the end of the month. So you aren't going to get too drawn into your new year yet. You're going to be able to take some of these ideas we're talking about today and consider how you would apply them to your business. Anyway, this point, are you done, Robin? I wanted to just...
Yes, we should move on. Because
all right. So this point now or never kind of dovetails beautifully with our next insight. And that is the connection of flower professionals with the consumer marketplace. Increasingly, and I call it plant your bouquet. So increasingly flower farmers and cut flower growers are seeing this potential of sharing their expertise with customers who want to plant the same cool varieties that the professionals plant, or want to design with the same cool flowers that the florists are designing with. So we're seeing that kind of in the seed market, where the demand for seeds and panic buying for seeds really took off in 2021. It's not slowing down. But I've interviewed several of our members who are seeing a way to sell cut flower plant collections to customers who want a kind of the turnkey instant gratification cutting garden. They might want to buy the seeds that they feel like they want to be gardeners, but so often people are like, no, just give it to me, just do it for me. And this beautiful photo was given to me by Sarah Berkeley, who's a member in Minnesota. She owns Sarah's Cottage Creations and Flower Farm. And Sarah has a landscape design business. She had all this acreage, so she started growing cut flowers. And then she realized, I could integrate my cut flower farm with my landscape design business and design cutting gardens for people and teach people how to do cutting gardens. So I think it's really timely, and it's something we can all take advantage of.
Yeah, and this is a perfect example of that larger cultural trend where 20 million new participants picked up the trowel in 2020. People have gone to their gardens, and you have all heard this one for sure, but it's not slowing down either. And people are looking at this as planting their bouquet in their backyard. They've moved on from the pea patches. We like to say here that vegetable gardening is a gateway to flower gardening. People start with vegetables, they get a tomato in a pot and they have success, or they plant peas. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I could have flowers all day long, all summer long, or all season long. I don't need to, I can fill in with local farmers if I want, but I could plant my own selection. So this is really a great trend for us. Also, what's interesting is we have another statistic that we found that 55%, is it 55%, Debra, of the people who are new to gardening in this past year were male.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So keep that in mind. It's kind of like when I used to do a food analysis, and I did a supermarket survey of who did the shopping in the household, and we discovered that it was shared 50-50. So think of that when you're also thinking about, planning your bouquet and also your garden experiences.
Yeah, one of the I guess comments that came out of the Slow Flowers member survey was, we asked people, how are you diversifying your floral offerings to customers? And that really informed this insight. One person said, we're offering education tips and tricks for customers interested in growing their own cutting gardens. We had over 45%. Well, we asked people, how are you diversifying floral offerings to customers? The top option was cut flower garden design. That was over 45%. The second trend was selling tubers and bulbs to customers or florists. And we've seen that going on for many years, these sort of boutique collections of dahlia tubers and bulbs. That was about 43%. The third highest at 35% was cut flower plant starts sold to customers or florists. And that's this insight I'm just talking about, where if you're a retailer or a designer or a grower, you can create these curated collections for your region and market them for people who don't want to do all the research. They just want you to give it to them. Which, by the way, Robin, that goes with one of our insights from last year, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then
I'm that person. I'll admit it. Just give it to me. Tell me what works.
Yes, you are. And then the fourth highest ranking one was people creating their own seed collections. So there's a lot here for you to unpack and consider for how you can leverage this insight and share your knowledge with your customers, be florists or consumers. Okay, insight number 3, we call it supply chains boost local. What it really should be is broken supply chains boost local, because we're seeing this hyper local pride as people want their purchases to benefit businesses in their community. Robin quoted a writer that she saw, which I thought was perfect, where someone said, I didn't really need to source from China. I had everything I need right here. And so this shift of looking closer to home, whether it's a necessity or whether it's because you care about seeing the small independent businesses in your community stay in business through this disruption, it's really, it's not going away. And this is one of the most pressing insights even in our survey. So I'll let Robin comment about the larger culture, and then I'll share some of the insights from our survey.
Well, this is no surprise probably to anybody in terms of supply chain, but I also want to underscore that this just isn't because of COVID. It's also because of weather. You've all seen this across the country just in the last few weeks. For those who are in Washington State, they know this, but we actually had all 3 of our major highways shut down with snow the past 2 weeks.
The state, east to west, statewide, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, the east to west. So everything was any kind of truck supplies that were coming from what we would say east of the mountains, they were stuck. And that impacted everything. And then we get a text from our neighbor. The lines at the the Fred Meyer are all the way down the aisle. It was like people went nuts, right? It was like toilet paper and COVID. So I think what's happening here is like an awakening. People are going, well, wait a second. I don't need to count on, somebody shipping me something in the mail for my holiday gifts. I can go local, and all of those type of things are impacting, and especially in the local flowers area. So people also are having an environmental awareness of what that means to bring something from abroad now, and to also, bring something from across the country. So local is everything, especially for when you get in the food, vegetable, and flower range.
You're right. And they're all the perishable categories, right?
Yep.
I want to just say that this photo features Rose Coacher, and Rose is one of the managers at Green Center in Pittsburgh. And this is a photo that of a group of images that Green Center shared with me last year when they decided, well, because of every wedding they booked got postponed, they pivoted and decided to really emphasize their CSAs and they have their own growing fields. So they were able to really market their own flowers as a product offering to keep their customers engaged and to create cash flow for themselves.
I also wanted to mention that Slow Flowers partnered with the National Gardening Association and gardenresearch.com on a survey this year about national attitudes about local and domestic cut flowers. And what you found was 57% of survey respondents said that it is very or somewhat important to them that the flowers they purchase are grown in the U.S.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Pretty awesome statistic.
Yes. And by the way, we are going to partner. Slow Flowers is partnering with the National Gardening Survey again for 2022. And this time we're asking those same attitude questions and about, how people feel about local and domestic flowers. But we're also asking where people buy their local and domestic flowers when they purchase flowers. So that I'm excited about those findings, and we'll be sharing those in April. So and I
also think, another interesting thing about this is that you said that it's not only the consumer, it's also other, the
B2B, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. We heard a wide range of comments from florists who, over the last 2 years, who have really shifted their buying practices and spent more time cultivating relationships with flower farmers. I think you all know that. Everyone who's on this call is on one side of that equation. And we had in our survey, we had 48% of our members said that they diversified their sourcing practices in 2021. And what I thought was interesting is 54% of our respondents said they grow between 3/4 to all of the flowers they use in their own design work. So local is hyper local, and it's not going to change. We're for all the reasons Robin mentioned that are kind of macro, it's also about the sustainability issue. Okay, should we go to our next insight, Robin?
Yeah, let's do it.
This one, Nisha will laugh at because we are going to talk about color. We love that Pantone has, the corner on the market for the color of the year. Sometimes we agree with it, sometimes we don't. At least Berry Perry is in a floral palette. Unlike the gray of last year, which was pretty difficult to use unless you, had a few gray leafed plants. But really what this is about is just an overall shift that's happened at least for the last 5 years to see more color in the floral world. We've been talking about this, since 2015, but we asked our members to identify their preferences in color, and it was literally all over the map. So, Robin, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about why we're getting away from whites and blushes. Maybe it's both practical and aesthetic.
Well, I think it's a mix of both for sure. The supply chain definitely is impacting this, but also I think you see this emerging of artistic expression and personality, and color is a way for people to express that. And we've seen that in, periods of cultural and artistic disruption that happen. The references ranging from the pre-Raphaelites, the 1960s is a great example, the bling of the 1990s. And, there's new lifestyle trends like granny chic, a mashup coined by House Beautiful, where, believe it or not, millennials now, actually, not millennials, but the next gen also is interested in more of their grandparents' style. Call it hand-me-downs if you want, but for budget restraints. But you see those colors emerging and that those styles emerging. So while the Pantone color of the year is very Perry, you can always look at things like Sherwin-Williams, Behr Paint, all the other paint companies. They all come out with their own color palettes of the year as well. So it's all over the place. But I think the main emphasis here is that overall people are looking for a little brightness in their lives. And that's why you're seeing a real shift to a variety of palettes.
Yeah, I saw one phrase when we asked our members about their floral palette predictions for 2022. I thought one of the, well, I'll just give you a range. Organic neutrals still tops the list with 25% preference, which I think is a nod to weddings. But the other palettes were warm and saturated, which was almost as strong as organic neutrals, and then mixed medley, which is really back to our polychromatic insight from a couple years ago. But I love the term joyful post-pandemic colors as a way to describe 2022's brighter, more vivid palette shift. And I think that when I gave Robin a selection of bouquets from our members, she created this slide, and you see there's a little bit of blush, but there's definitely more saturated palettes that I think in general we're all ready for.
Yeah, and remember, these your customer wants to feel personalized, that they're making their own personal choices about their palette.
I will also just add one more thing, which I think relates specifically to the Slow Flowers community and kind of a brand differential. And that is palettes are taking on a greater reflection of what's in season. So there's a spring palette, there's a fall palette, there's a peak of summer palette. So it's more about using that reality to market your I don't know, your ability to help your customers reflect the season rather than rely on some on-demand 24/7 availability of a specific bloom like white or blush for a wedding. So I think that does influence floral style, if you really want to use the seasonality as your guide. This is an insight that Robin really got on my radar, and that is grounding rituals. In the past last year, actually, we had floral wellness as a top theme. A lot of that had to do with just that kind of immediacy of people trying to do self-care during the uncertainty of COVID from 2020 into 2021. But this is a little bit more intentional and not reactionary as this insight. We're seeing everyone wants to steep themselves in nature and feed their soul, body, and spirit. But this is having applications in a wide range of iterations. This image is from Pepper Harrow Farm. They are doing a workshop in 2022 that it will play off of their amazing lavender fields in Iowa and have perfume making activity. So they let us borrow this image.
Well, I think what's interesting here is you see a lot of talk about ritual and about process, about just doing something for the process and for having it be a regular part of your life and finding that it's very grounding. I see many of you on your Instagram feed talk about your either morning or evening walks through your garden. Even the individual consumer in their backyard, I see that I go out. a friend of Slow Flowers, Lorraine Edwards, has a book coming out about her daily ritual of color from the garden. We see these things cropping up all over as a way to put some calm and peace into our lives. The average American spends 93% of their time indoors. Now, the Northwest would probably skew a little differently, but in general, this is an accurate statistic where we are indoors. I don't think I've been outdoors in, I walk out on my deck right now because it's been pouring here in the Pacific Northwest. But one of the trends we kind of saw that's coming out of Japan, it's called forest bathing. I'm sorry, we're going to suggest flower bathing.
Right. We're going to play off of that, right?
Right. But forest bathing is not bathing in the taking a bath in the forest. It's walking into the forest and just experiencing the calm and peace and beauty. And so Debra suggested we take a riff off of that and talk about adopting flower bathing, where you really get to appreciate those flowers, and talk about the ritual. Do I do a setup when I go to make a bouquet? Do I walk my garden every morning and just, with my cup of coffee? What do I do that can get me ready either for the end of the day or bring me down during, and give me some peace at the end of the day?
I think we've seen this awareness of how much nature, heals people for many years, and our members who are taking advantage of that. And I don't mean this in a kind of just crass business way, but I think members are in tune with this because they know how much their farm or floral experience is nurturing them, and they want to share that with their customers. And by opening the door to offer that opportunity, I think it's just a positive shift. We have a member named Jenny Hurlbert who has a company called Forest and Flowers Retreat House outside of Pittsburgh. She's basically a flower farmer, but she has a cabin getaway on her farm, and she's marketing it for self-guided wellness retreats, and then offering botanical workshops for customers to experience the beauty of flowers and the healing essences of nature. So we also are working closely with, and this is what Robin was talking about, watching Instagram feeds, working closely with our member Felicia Alvarez of Menagerie Farm and Flowers. We're working on a book with her that will be about growing roses. It's coming out in a few months, called Growing Wonder. But every day, we see Felicia posting her sunset walk in her rose fields, and her community and her followers are engaging with that and feeling like they're part of that, even though they maybe couldn't physically be with her.
Right. She says, "Good night, farm." And it's just like, oh.
Yeah. So I think, if you can infuse grounding rituals into your floral enterprise and share that with your clients and customers who are seeking mindfulness and wellness, helping them tap into ritual and, find a sense of calm through any number of floral activities and projects. It could be related. It could be journaling or meditative activities. It doesn't have to just be flower growing and design. It's a tangential, related, symbiotic way to have these experiences in a space of flowers. And I like what Robin said, turn off the phones, be in the moment, and resist the urge to take a selfie. So you all know this. Okay, our next insight we're really excited about because we had a very successful meetup in March of last year with 3 of our members who are very much involved in dye plants and pigment making and art making from their flower farms. And so actually this image, Lourdes Still from Massagana Farm in Canada gave us this, and she's in Manitoba. And I love that this photo shows how vivid the plant world is for artists. And Robin coined this phrase, forever flowers. I had first started looking at non-edible agriculture as like a legitimate form of farming, which cut flowers fit into, but it's beyond that. And I think that, Robin, you want to mention sort of why this was so important to you as you looked at this insight?
Well, I think this really ties into the larger cultural trend of repurposing, reuse, recycling, and preserving. It all adds up to this, but it's a piece of the culinary world nose to tail approach that lets use everything and not throw things away and reduce waste. And so we see that happening with what these artists are doing and creatives are doing with actual flowers. And they're getting attention from collectors and galleries and the media. We even have a little section in the upcoming summit called Flowers as Artist Muse. And we are fortunate to have potter Frances Palmer, who's going to talk about that, her pottery ritual and her gardening rituals, and how they coincide. And then also, if you haven't followed this Instagram feed, I encourage you to go look at Ronnie Nicole Robinson, whose Instagram feed. She does botanical designs for paper, plaster, all sorts of other items. Her work is beautiful and now is collector status. We look at how it's used in baking, how it's used. Julie Beeler, who is a Slow Flowers member, has a whole colors that she gets from a variety of products and plants. And particularly, she's working with mushrooms. Is that correct, Debra?
Yeah, she's created the mushroom color atlas that we featured on a podcast earlier this year, which is blew my mind.
Yeah, and we also see things like, natural watercolor coming from flowers. So, the great thing about something like that is you're not using the perfect flower, you're using the essence of the flower itself. So it opens a lot of opportunities for sustainability and using every piece of the product.
Yeah, and I would say the relevance to, we know our members, a lot of our members are already doing this. So as I mentioned, we had Lourdes and Julie and Elaine Vandiver, who co-presented our, Let's Talk About Dye Plants session last year, which was super, to me, it just showed all the potential of where we're going with the opportunity of basically crop extension. Like, what are you growing and what is it for? I would say if you don't know where to begin, invite a local artist or makers group to visit your farm or your studio. Those are the people who will see things that you're doing in a new way and perhaps create some possible artistic collaborations. We're going to create a book with Julie Beeler in 2023 called Forever Flowers. So we had to share this as an insight. I think this is an ongoing, we don't even know how far we can stretch this insight because it's based on artists and what artists do with the plants in their world. Let's talk about Black Flora. 2022 will witness a further emphasis on BIPOC representation across the green profession as the voices of flower farmers and floral designers of color are amplified. And we are all for this. We're so excited to see the inclusion of more diverse points of view infused in the marketplace, bringing energy, meaning, and recognition that gardening, flower growing, and floral design have long been too one-dimensional. In terms of human sustainability, this embrace of equity and inclusion is essential, I believe, to the future of agriculture, land access, food access, and access to the marketplace for all. The cover you see here is for a book that is actually a Bloom Imprint project going to the printer today, right, Robin?
Yes, actually it is.
Do you want to talk a little bit about this book? And you'll all be hearing more about it.
Yeah, well, this book, a lot of people have put their heart and soul into this book, from the participants to the writers and the photographers, and we're so appreciative of and happy to be able to highlight this. This is so reflective of a collective cultural shift that you're seeing in the faces of all the stories and presented by the media and just highlighted elsewhere. Floristry is no exception to the rule here. And So we want to see these Black and brown floral entrepreneurs move to the forefront as experts, sources, and subjects. It's long overdue. And we're seeing major news media like the New York Times published feature and profiles. They actually, it was called Black Gardeners Find Refuge in the Soil. It was published in October 2021. Black Flora, this upcoming book, was mentioned in that. But the article talked about history and also I think it's also was extended online in a variety of other pieces. So if you want to find that, just Google that, the New York Times, and you'll be able to find it. So we also see a proliferation of Instagram accounts like Black Men with Gardens, Black Girls with Gardens, Black-owned seed companies, the Black Sanctuary Garden. There's a beautiful one in San Francisco. All of these are, wonderful additions to the community, and we should all share in the joy of this and support.
Robin, when I was proofreading the manuscript last night, or the PDF of our book design, that word joy jumped out in so many pull quotes. So many of the 22 Black flower farmers and florists who were profiled by our author, Terry Spate, used the word joy about their relationship with flowers. And it really bubbled up as sort of the theme of this book. And I think it benefits our whole community when we highlight so many different stories and personalities. So you're going to be hearing a lot about this going forward. The energy and creativity that comes through these connections. I think it elevates the floral profession in an important new way that all should model. And I just want to say that this has always been a value of Slow Flower Society, and we are just happy to see this shift continue to change the face of floristry, and flower farming. Okay, and you'll hear more about this. So we'll probably have a special meetup about all the folks that are in this book coming up. Okay, number 8, sustainability and the climate. I had to grab the grid from our friend Becky Feasby of Prairie Girl Flowers to show all the topics that this insight involves. This was her one. This is just sort of the grid that you see at Prairie Girl Flowers when Becky does a sustainability Sunday post every week. Some of them are, no-brainers. Some of them are edgy, and they all get a lot of attention and engagement. But this is the 3rd consecutive year we have included the climate and climate concerns in the Slow Flowers Floral Insights. And as Robin has said to me, things start out as trends and then they move into the mainstream. And I sort of feel like, they get folded into the regular culture, I guess is the way you describe it, Robin. And that's sadly, that's what's happening with our awareness about sustainability and the climate. But on the other hand, at least we're talking about it now.
Yeah. And I think this is interesting. I mean, it's either this summer it was too hot for many of us. This winter it's too cold. You can see it in all of our everyday lives. Even people who I know who were kind of saying, this is really just a hoax, this whole climate change thing. It's just something to talk about, are now on board and realizing that there's something amiss in the way our extreme weather is happening. And so it's made people super aware, consumers and businesses super aware of how they can be authentic about talking about how we can help the planet. And that's key. There's a phrase called greenwashing, which means, use phrase like natural and that I, care about the environment. You kind of really have to show it. The consumer marketplace is getting very, very savvy now about what's real and what's not.
I think that the number one issue that we see in the Slow Flowers community is this critical mass rejection of floral foam and plastics. We forecasted this in our very first report in 2015. And it's just snowballing in a very high awareness way. Members are teaching sustainable design practices and communicating no plastic messaging in their branding and services. We asked a question on our survey this year, what percentage of your design work uses alternatives to floral foam? And 75% of people said 3/4 to 100% of the time they are using alternatives to floral foam. People cited, all of the foam-free alternative mechanics that we've talked about. I'm excited that TJ McGrath is on this call. He's going to be demonstrating foam-free floral installations at the summit. It's just like, part of his DNA. He doesn't let his clients, specify designs for weddings that use it. So I think it's kind of a business shift as well. So I do think that there's other iterations of this. We're seeing here in Seattle, there's a zero waste. There's zero waste services. One is called Ridwell. There's another called TerraCycle. They're filling in the recycling gaps to create a way to recycle non sort of specialty items, not your average thing that you throw in the recycling bin, but things like unique plastics or unique they're all plastic based, but they have different applications and they just can't be recycled by the regular municipality. So we're seeing this being adopted. And I do think that the main takeaway is telegraph your climate friendly practices, because consumers are seeing headlines that scare them, and they want to know that you're an enterprise that they can trust to help them feel good about, purchasing your services and your flowers. So.
And I will also add, there's a real generational thing here for a lot of us who are, I would say, boomers and Gen Xers that, who kind of have come to this awareness. But for younger generations, this is just part of their DNA now. And it's part of what they're looking at in terms of all of the things and products that they buy. So not everybody, it's not 100%, of course, there's different pockets, but it is an awareness that's kind of ingrained into them because they've learned it in school.
It's absolutely true. When you mention it that way, I remember when Alex came home from middle school and said, "Why don't we have a food compost container under the sink?"
Right.
And that's what forced me to do it. And this was maybe 15 years ago. So
Yeah,
it's everywhere. Okay.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. So our final insight, this is all Robin. And when she said to me, we have to talk about the metaverse, I literally did not know what she was talking about. So I'm going to let you talk about this one, Robin, and I'll jump in with a few additional thoughts.
Well, I'll just, I have to share, I have to tell on you a little, Debra. When we were talking about this, she goes, "So there's apps in the metaverse?" And I'm like, "No, there's no apps in the metaverse. Apps have nothing to do with the metaverse. The metaverse is about a virtual reality environment, or what's called an augmented reality environment. These are environments that include technology. And so it's a digital space, and you can interact with a computer generated environment. You can either be totally immersed in it, or you can lay it on top of your existing real space. It's virtual, it's not physical. And if any of you have seen the Van Gogh experience or whatever that's traveling around, it's not like that. It's even a little more immersive in terms of an environment that you step into. We know a lot about immersive floral experiences. That's what we do. So I ask, are there flowers in the metaverse? And I would say there absolutely has to be flowers in the metaverse. And so what does this, exactly mean? It's just to say, we're at this point here, according to just a recent analysis by Wonderman, where the vice president of research of the Consumer Technology Association said recently, "We're starting to talk about the metaverse now, the same way we talked about the internet in the early 1990s. So for all of you who said, "I'll never need a website. Why do I want to have a blog? Oh, what's this about Instagram? TikTok? Do I need to do TikTok?" All of these things that came along that became fundamental influencers in our lives and in consumers' lives, This is where the metaverse is now. This is where it's starting. It might seem a little science fiction-y, but the fact is that it will evolve over time. And I can say that having had some really experienced some of these wonderful virtual experiences, Gina Davis, the actress, was very early on and did an immersive virtual experience in the metaverse that was actually beautiful. I actually, was brought to tears by it. So this is not scary. There's always a scary component, but there's also a very positive component that you should be aware of. And I think that it's really important for you to be aware of this. There's nothing that you particularly need to act upon at this time, but I think you really need to think about what it may be in your future, and also think of the technology too. Technology is a tool for your communication. Technology is a way that you keep in contact with your customers now, whether it's your website, whether it's your newsletters, all of those things. They're part of a larger communication package and part of a larger relationship package. And one thing Debra always says, and we always talk about, is own your content. So that means that you want to be the one who is talking about your business and putting your brand out there. So just think about all of that in terms of what the future might hold, and look at it as a continuation of all the work that you're doing now.
I agree. And I thought that you did give me some examples that I could see where this was going when you talked about the way retail is becoming kind of this blurred virtual experience. And if anyone's in retail, that would be worth tracking. And then you talked about a term called gamevertising, where you basically shop, you play a game while shopping. And like all of these things are very early, being kind of presented to the early adopters. Who knows where it's going to go for our experience? I would say, just as kind of a footnote, we know about immersive experiences. They're based in reality, right? And that's what we do is kind of give the antidote to all this technology to our consumers. So we always end the forecast with kind of a little edginess, and that's sort of what this is. But I guess the bottom line is that we are in the middle of change, and we hope that change works for you and you leverage it rather than feeling immobilized by it. That would be our wish for you and going forward. Robin, thanks so much for creating this amazing report with me.
Oh, we did it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to, well, you made the beautiful slides though, lady. Do you want to share anything else before we wrap up?
No, I just wonder if there's any questions that we should answer for people. We only have a couple minutes, but Karen, are there any questions other than the comments
Yeah, a few questions actually about the National Garden Survey that you guys might take a quick moment to answer. They asked if there would be a Canadian counterpart of the survey, and also had a suggestion on asking about purchase frequency too, for the interesting data that might propose.
What was the first one?
If there's a Canadian counterpart to the survey.
You know what? I am not aware of one. I've talked with the National Gardening Association about that, and they weren't aware of an like an affiliate organization. So we might just have to do our own survey in Canada, and we'll have to share our approach. And to do it right, you have to work with a national survey model. We couldn't just do this it wouldn't have been scientifically accurate if we had just sent out a survey. We had to work with people who were, qualified researchers. Robin, you probably have some comments about that because you've worked in research so much.
Well, yeah, you just are, I would just say that that's what gives the survey its legitimacy, is you're doing standard practices. So
yeah. And frequency could be something we could look at in the future. It's basically the model of the National Gardening Survey it's an omnibus survey of over 2,500 American households. And it's asking about the past year's behavior. So it's hard enough to get people to remember how much they spent on flowers in a year. I'm not sure whether the researchers want to try to have people recall their frequency, but I do think that that's a really great question. So, and by the way, you can read that report if you go to slowflowersjournal.com. We have all the information about the results of those insights that we published in April of 2021, and we'll be doing it again this year. Had a wonderful hour. I'm sure there's some questions that didn't get answered, and Karen will give them to me so we can follow up with people individually. But I just want to thank you all for being part of this amazing session. We're going to meet next month in post Valentine's Day. Rather than having it be our meeting be the second Friday of February, we're going to propose meeting February 18th, which will give everyone time to recover from Valentine's Day. So keep an eye out for that. And yes, Rachel is asking, will the survey be posted on the Slow Flowers website? We posted one report on slowflowersjournal.com, but there's so much information from our survey. It will probably be a series like it was last year. So, okay. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Robin. It's been a really great session. Really good participation today. I appreciate you all joining us, and we will share the replay video of this widely. You'll be able to find it on YouTube. So you can go back and watch it. Take care.
Thank you so much. Happy 2022.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today and watch a replay video of our amazing forecast for 2022. So much is happening over the next, of course, of this coming year of 2022. I'll be unpacking many of these insights and diving deeper into conversations with lifestyle and floral influencers, as well as those early adopters in the Slow Flowers community who have embraced some of the shifts and themes that Robin and I just discussed. To bring it all full circle, I must paraphrase an often quoted line: control technology, don't let it control you. The future's virtual floral garden and outdoor environments, which we can only just now imagine, may offer a different kind of peaceful escape from today's stressful environments. But for now, the floral reawakening is as much about nurturing the analog lifestyle of unplugging and escaping to nature as it is about embracing the modern conveniences on which we all depend. We hope you draw one or two radical ideas from this 2022 Slow Flowers Floral Insights and Industry Forecast, and I'd love to learn about how you adapt them to your own floral enterprise, be it a studio, shop, or farm. So reach out, Debra at slowflowers.com. I'd love to hear from you and love to hear your reactions. Before we wrap up, I have a few sponsor thank yous. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 880 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. Thank you to our lead sponsor for 2022, Farm Girl Flowers. Farm Girl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $11 million of U.S.-grown fresh flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgirlflowers.com. Thank you to Johnny's Selected Seeds, an employee-owned company that provides our industry the best flower, herb, and vegetable seeds supplied to farms large and small, and even to backyard cutting gardens like mine. Find the full catalog of flower seeds and bulbs at johnnysseeds.com. Thank you to Mayesh Wholesale Florist. Family owned since 1978, Mayesh is the premier wedding and event supplier in the U.S., and we're thrilled to partner with Mayesh to promote local and domestic flowers, which they source from farms large and small around the U.S. Learn more at mayesh.com. Thank you to the Gardener's Workshop, which offers a full curriculum of online education for flower farmers and farmer florists. Online education is more important than ever, and you'll want to check out the course offerings at thegardenersworkshop.com. The Slow Flower Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show or our long-running podcast, check out all of our resources at slowflowerssociety.com and consider making a donation to sustain Slow Flower's ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities, you can find the donate button in the column to the right at slowflowerspodcast.com. I'm Debra Prinzing, host and producer of The Slow Flowers Show and The Slow Flowers Podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll see you next week.